Hi, my name is Peter Isquith. I'm a psychologist and one of the co-authors of the Behavior Rating Inventory of Executive Function. I'd like to talk to you today about the second edition of the BRIEF2. In 1994, there were a handful of articles about executive functioning in children, somewhere between 10 and 15 articles. These were classic articles and very informative, but we had very few tools and we had little understanding of whether executive function was developing, at what times, was it simultaneous, and so on. In order to study this, my colleagues and I decided that we needed a measure, a way to capture executive functions. We wanted to do so in the everyday real-world context of the children we were seeing. As full-time clinicians, we were familiar with children who came in who were described as having executive function difficulties or problems in the real world, but on our tests were doing fine, and vice versa. So we set out to capture what parents and teachers were telling us about children's functioning. As a result of that, we worked for several years until 2000, the first brief was published, covering the age range from 5 to 18. Since publication, the brief has been expanded to cover the full age range from 2 to 90 years. There have been over 800 peer-reviewed publications in the literature that attest to the validity of the various forms of the brief. As of recently, there are over 40 clinical trials and outcome studies looking at the brief's sensitivity to measuring change as a result of treatment. The brief has been translated into over 60 languages and is used in research and in clinical contexts on over 6 continents. At this point, as of 2015, we are releasing the second edition of the brief. This version will cover the age range from 5 to 18. It is shorter by a quarter, thus faster to administer and reduces respondent burden. And in the same manual, we include the parent, the teacher, and the self-report forms. We've made many changes to improve the brief. First and foremost, we've included a new standardization sample. The sample is stratified by U.S. Census data for gender, parent education level, and ethnicity. Importantly, we have included over 3,600 ratings on the BRIEF2 that are stratified by geographic region. All 50 states are represented in the new standardization sample. The new BRIEF2 is also equivalent to the brief, its predecessor. There are no new items on the clinical scales, allowing for consistency of data collection between the original brief and the BRIEF2. At the same time that we made the BRIEF2 a shorter instrument, we were able to increase the sensitivity of the scales to the presence of clinical conditions or clinical difficulties. The new BRIEF2 scales are slightly shorter, but have the same content as the original brief scales. We were able to shorten the overall brief by approximately a quarter, reducing respondent burden. At the same time, we restructured the response forms so that the items are much more parallel. The factor structure of the BRIEF2 is stronger than in the original brief. The scales are supported by many statistical methods, including exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis. There are 3 factors now on the brief, 3 indexes, consistent with accepted theory and with multiple studies on the factor structure of the brief. And these indexes include behavior regulation, emotion regulation, and cognitive regulation. We've also added screening forms for each of the parent, teacher, and self-report versions. These are 12 items that are highly predictive of the overall global executive composite scores on the BRIEF2. The new screening forms are designed to facilitate rapid assessment to determine whether further evaluation, a more comprehensive evaluation of executive function, might be appropriate or necessary. We have also included new statistics to support evidence-based interpretation of BRIEF2 scores. These include reliable change, inter-rater agreement metrics, base rate tables for both clinical and typically developing students. Contingency statistics are included in screening forms and in the BRIEF2 overall for select diagnostic groups. this provides more information to help with interpretation.